The students here on campus have accused you of being a white supremacist, as well as, and I'm just telling you what they said.
I'm loving this. This is great. This is the first I've heard.
So you do realize that to have an abortion is really painful, and
I imagine
it feels like you're
it's really hard on the baby.
Right. Okay.
The interpretation of the Constitution is the problem, not the Constitution. So do you think when Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin and all these guys were writing the Constitution, they're like, freedom for Muslims to come over here and like, you know, have Pakistani rape gangs? Am I right?
No, probably
No.
not.
So you think that instead of bringing the child in poverty to give the child the opportunity to not exist, you think that that's wrong?
Should we kill all poor people?
I mean,
You really need to get out of politics.
I know. I do need it. Thank you guys for coming out. Whether you agree with me, disagree with me, you know, I'm just glad you're here. Obviously, there's been a lot of controversy surrounding this event. It's been canceled once. Student walkouts, all those things. Cool, whatever. We're here now, and I think it's going to be a really good time. My topic, Christ or chaos, that is kind of the premise of this. But again, if you got questions other than that, happy to hear those too, is the idea that God created everything to have order. And when we live and govern and create laws that are in harmony with the way that God has created everything, we have a society that flourishes. But the Western civilization was built in harmony with the way that God created everything, okay? So when we make laws and we govern, we want to govern the way that God tells us to govern in his word, but also in natural law. You can look and see how he created things. And so when we do that, there's flourishing, which is what Western civilization has been for a very long time. But the last 50, 70, 100 years in the United States of America and in Europe, we've abandoned these things. We've abandoned God. We've abandoned Christ as king. And we began to govern in a way that is the complete opposite of that. We essentially, as a culture and a civilization, we've gone to war with God, and we're reaping the benefits of it, which is why you're seeing the problems that you see. So that's my premise. Cannot wait to answer your guys' questions. Nothing's off the table, and I'll get behind the table.
All right, so I'm vice president of the Turning Point chapter here on campus, and I promised the students on campus that I would ask you a question and let you dive down first.
Sure.
The students here on campus have accused you of being a white supremacist. They've brought up your history in prison, joining a white supremacist gang, as well as, and I'm just telling you what they said.
I'm loving this.
As
this
well as on
first I've
January
heard.
26th, you reposted a post from the Department of Homeland Security where they used the song that's typically known as like the white supremacy national anthem, talking about taking our home back.
We will have our home again.
Yes, thank you. So I wanted you to be able to address that to the students who asked me to do that. If you don't mind, after you address that, I did have my personal question I wanted to ask you, but
yeah,
I wanted to give the students who didn't feel comfortable coming, but I promised I would ask them that question.
Yeah, and this is all going to be broadcast and published on 1819 News, so I love that everybody's dug in and looked into everything I've said, everything I've done, all those things. First and foremost, I was facing 384 years in prison for attempted murder, aggravated robbery, and extortion. I go all in at whatever I do, and before I knew who God was and who Christ was, I got into drugs and alcohol. I sold drugs at a very high level. I went from selling little bits of marijuana to where I was pushing kilos of cocaine and pounds of methamphetamines for cartels in Colorado Springs. I was hanging out with really bad people doing really bad things. Yeah, that is all 100% true, and I did some really, really horrible things that I'm not proud of, and by the grace of God, I was only sentenced to 16 years in the Colorado Department of Corrections. 3 years into my stay, I got saved, and from that moment forward, I've just dug into God's Word and tried to conform my life into the image of His Son, Jesus Christ, and live in a way that honors Him, and as I was saying with Christ or Chaos, that's in harmony with that. The people that I actually hung out with and associated more than anything because of the people that I was on the streets working for was Mexican cartels, Mexican mafia, these type of people, throughout my time in prison. I actually got in trouble with the white supremacist gangs that were in the Colorado prison system because I refused to join their gangs. I said, if I'm coming into prison by myself, I'm going to leave by myself. So I'm going to do my time by myself. And so I did not click up with the white boys. One of my best friends was a giant black dude named Solomon Chambers, and I would eat with him in the chow hall, which you are not supposed to do, okay? And so I did that, and he is my friend. So accusations of white supremacist, racist, fascist, these are all whatever, you know, the accusations that are going to be made. I don't even know how to, like, from a standpoint of white supremacist, fascist, whatever, I think Right now, we are living in a society, in a country, in a nation, in a civilization that has fallen for this idea of toxic empathy, suicidal empathy. And there's hard truths, the way that God created things. And if we don't get back to looking at those things and living in accordance with those things, in harmony with those things, our civilization is going to fall apart. And if you do those things, you're going to be called a racist, you're going to be called a fascist, you're going to be called a white supremacist. I don't encourage people to be racist, fascist, white supremacists. Right. However, if you do these things, if you resist the Bolshevik Marxist left, they will label you a fascist. They will label you a fascist. And the point of labeling you as a fascist is so that they can kill you, like they did Charlie, right? And so that label, fascist, white supremacist, it means nothing to me. And in my belief is that it is used as a way when someone is actually shown courage and effectiveness in resisting the communist long march through the institutions, which I'll probably go over later. When someone is effective in resisting the left, they're labeled a fascist. And once they're labeled a fascist, that means that you can kill them. And so it's really an attempt to do that.
All right. So the other question, it doesn't really relate to your topic, but recently, the U.S. and Israel have started operations in Iran with the killing of their supreme leader, their Ayatollah, and all that. Can I just ask your perspective or your viewpoint on the war in Iran? Is it necessary, or do you think it's going to be another forever war like Iraq was?
Yeah, great question. So my generation, I'm 41 years old, born in 1984, was supposed to graduate in 2003, didn't, drugs and all that. But my generation was the one that went to war in Iraq. My generation was the one that went into Afghanistan, right? My friends, people that were my age, and we were promised that there was weapons of mass destruction, right? We were promised there was weapons of mass destruction. 3 weeks into the conflict, they had up on the battleship where George W. Bush put it out, mission accomplished, and they were there for 20 more years, okay? So yeah, anytime we get into any type of Middle Eastern conflict that doesn't necessarily directly benefit our nation, I'm super duper nervous about, a 20-year desert war where we send our sons to die for no reason that actually benefits or behooves our nation. That being said, I am giving Trump a little more leash than I would any other leader, because he's proven in his foreign policy from even his first term with al-Baghdadi, right, when he smoked him and was like, he died like a dog, right? That was amazing. Right. Everything he's done, he's shown that he is able to repel and restrain the neocon influence more than anybody else who's ever been in that position since JFK, and we saw how that ended for him, right? So he's done a really good job, and so I'm just going to wait and see. I didn't like that we went in and bombed Iran's nuclear facilities, but we were in and out. As it pertains to Venezuela and what we did in Venezuela, I am a Monroe Doctrine guy, and what that means is I believe that we should have dominance in the Western Hemisphere. Mm-hmm. And having dominance in the Western Hemisphere means that you can go and absolutely knapsack some dude in a third world country and steal their oil. All for it, okay? That's good for us. Happy to do it. But it's the wars in the Middle East that make me super duper nervous. And I don't see any direct benefit to the United States by us going into Iran. I don't think they have missiles that can reach us. They can shout death to America all they want, but they can't carry that out. And so they are a threat to Israel. And I think that that's probably a large influence on why we've gone into that war, is for Israel and not for our own interests. And I think that's going to cost us the midterms.
I agree. Thank you.
Yep.
Hello.
Hello.
I have a question.
Yes.
So do you think that when you were facing how many years in jail?
384.
Do you think that God saved you, or do you think privilege saved you?
Well, I believe that for sure 100% God saved me, because I guess I don't understand the privilege. I grew up in a broken home. My parents got divorced when I was 2. My mom was sexually abused as a child and had trauma that she'd never dealt with. So I used to watch my mom get beat on a regular basis, take pharmaceutical drugs and drink. I've had 5 or 6 stepdads. I've lost count. My dad grew up in West Monroe, Louisiana, swamp redneck with the Duck Dynasty guys, the Phil Robertson. He grew up there. He was so poor when he was growing up that they essentially didn't have shoes until he got to middle school. Okay, he had to hunt for food every morning, and they had to have a garden. That's how they ate. And so I don't come from a super duper privileged background. I had a very rough upbringing, experienced a lot of things that affected me going down that road. But as far as do I think privilege saved me, I don't think privilege can save. I think, did I benefit from some opportunities maybe because I looked a certain way? I guess it's certainly a possibility.
That's a privilege.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally, I get what you're saying. I don't deny that's a possibility. But I also know a lot of black friends that I was in prison with that were able to, they would be sitting down doing Bible studies with me. They would be going over self-help books with me. And they got out and did really, really well too. Right. And they were able to shorten their sentence by doing good. So, I benefited, because I was willing, first and foremost, Jesus Christ saved me, gave me a new heart, a new mind, a new, way of looking at things. And I leaned into that, and I've been blessed from that. I think the greatest privilege I probably benefit from is father privilege. I had a father who loved me and cared about me and poured into me. But I tell you what, one of the most interesting things I saw when I was in prison, I had a friend named Adrian, and he was a big black guy. He was a blood, okay? He was in the blood gang, and he really wanted to change his life. And we would be at the table, and he would have a bunch of black guys that would come up to him and say, "Man, you ain't never going to make it. You're black." What do you think that's like? So if you're a black man and you're in prison and you're trying to change your life, and all the other black gangbangers in there are coming up basically saying, "Hey man, you ain't never going to make it. You're never going to make it." And so the story that's being told to him as a black man who wants to do better, I'm there as a white man trying to help him be better. And his other black friends are telling him he can't make it.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
You keep mentioning that most of your friends in jail were black.
Not most of them, but some.
So did you feel like there was more of a majority of black presence in the jail? Or?
Not in Colorado. It's like, so basically the population density that is black in the South and in Alabama is Hispanic in Colorado. And so there's a very strong Hispanic presence in Colorado. There was certainly blacks, but it wasn't near the degree. Alabama's like very, very heavy black in the prison system. I agree with that.
Okay. So what are your views on abortion?
I think abortion is a satanic sacrament. I believe that, along with sodomy, is a satanic sacrament. And you can essentially see what governs a person's worldview. They could agree with you on every other political position, but the moment that you bring up homosexuality and abortion, they freak out, right? This is the one thing that you can't touch. And so I believe that the Bible is crystal clear about life begins at conception. You
don't agree with homosexuality?
No.
So you do realize that the original Bible has been converted and made by other different languages. The original languages, isn't it Hebrew?
It's Hebrew, it's Greek, and it's Aramaic. Okay,
so Hebrew is considered a dead language. None of us in here speak Hebrew.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure there are words that are in Hebrew that don't exist in the English language.
The ones in Greek where they condemn homosexuality are crystal clear, and they're in the New Testament.
Right.
So I don't need the Old Testament.
There's also versions that didn't say homosexual. It said man shall not lay with man. Instead of, it said man shall not lay with boy, and it was talking about pedophilia.
Sure. That's disgusting too, yeah.
I mean, yeah, but it said nothing about being homosexual.
Yeah, no, I think, you just go through, the scripture is replete with the condemnation of homosexuality. It calls it an abomination. And I think the key to understanding what an abomination is an abomination is a sin that doesn't just affect that person. It's a sin that gets into the air, earth, and water. And when a society begins to accept homosexuality, that society will not exist for much longer.
And why do you believe that? Because homosexuals have been alive since the beginning of time.
Sure, but when a society accepts them...
So has the world already been...
Oh, we've gone through all kinds of civilizations that have come crashing down.
But gay people have always been here.
Sure.
The picture of Jesus is one of the Leonardo DiCaprio's lover. That's not Jesus.
Yeah, I don't believe that, but I understand.
You don't believe that? That's
that Jesus
a painting
is Leonardo
of his gay lover that has been consumed by the white Christians. That it's Jesus.
Yes.
Why it says in the Bible that Jesus had hair like wool and skin like copper. That's not a white man with beach curls.
So are you talking about Jesus being gay, or are you talking about his curls?
I'm just saying the picture that you're splattering around as Jesus is not Jesus.
No, I think Jesus Christ is perfectly pictured in Revelation 19:11. When it says that he comes with his tongue as a sword, and he's coming back to crush those who are opposed to him.
So that's metaphorical.
It's metaphorical, but it's a crystal clear picture. So
that's metaphorical.
There went my sign. Yes, ma'am.
Which is what the Bible is, a book of metaphors.
Yes,
and
clearly.
And
some metaphors are more easily to understand than others. I can see that there's things in the Bible that are hard to understand, but homosexuality is not one of them.
So do you think that the Bible is do you think Christianity is the only true religion?
100%.
But there are religions that have been here longer than Christianity.
Yeah, and they're all burning in hell.
So how can I go to something I don't believe in?
I would get on your knees and talk to God and ask him to reveal the person and work of Jesus Christ to you so that you can be saved.
I believe that God is real. I just don't agree in the sense of how you believe in it.
But do you believe that Jesus Christ was born of a virgin, lived a perfect life, died on the cross, and a propitiatory death, which means that he appeased the wrath of God against your sin, my sin, and everybody here's sin? It was a propitiatory, so he offered himself as a sacrifice for sin. He died, was buried, rose on the third day, and ascended into heaven, and he's going to come back to judge the quick and the dead. Do you believe that?
Okay, so my question is, so the way that you don't agree with abortion, do you not agree with the children in the foster care system?
What do you mean?
Like, if somebody has a baby and they can't abort it, and they give the baby up to be in the foster care system, do you think that that's right?
Yeah, I think that's great. I think we need to do a lot of work.
Anybody in the foster care
Oh,
system?
yeah. You're not going to get any pushback from me on that.
Not you.
We need to absolutely reevaluate the way we're doing foster care. It needs to be privatized. There's a group in Huntsville called Kids to Love, ran by Lee Marshall. I just had her on my podcast, and she is basically reinstituting the way that foster care system is done. I think it's going to be adopted nationally, and we're doing it right here in Alabama. She's fighting the Department of Human Resources. She's fighting DHR. DHR is responsible for a lot of the atrocities that you see in the foster care system, and then it has to be stopped. Completely agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your questions.
You're welcome.
Hello, my name is Rylan. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, I love your shirt.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
I just had a question. So I agree with you in that our society has really strayed from its biblical principles that we started off with, and a lot of times churches are silent on issues such as transgenderism and especially issues on abortion. How do we change that with churches, and do you think churches should get involved in these issues?
So I think if you consider what the communist long march through the institutions was, this is going to be a history lesson. If you guys watch the Tucker Carlson Vladimir Putin interview, he asked him a simple question, then he took 6 hours to answer it, and you're like, oh my gosh, there's going to be a little bit of that, but not 6 hours. Okay. So what essentially happened in 1917, prior to Soviet Russia, you had Russia that was ran, governed, and ruled for 400 years under the dynasty of the Romanovs. And you had Tsar Nicholas Romanov, who was a Christian monarch. He was a Christian king. And under the Romanov Empire, the Romanov dynasty, they thrived, okay? And there was discontent among people who identified as what's called Bolsheviks in Russia, and they stormed the castle. They fomented revolution. It was called the Bolshevik Revolution or the Russian Revolution in 1917, and they fomented so much discontent that they stormed the castle. They killed the Romanov family. They stabbed his 5 children to death with bayonets after emptying their magazines into them, and they buried the royal family in a shallow grave outside of town. And they took over Russia, and they turned it into Soviet communist Russia, which is the only thing we've ever known about Russia, is that it was Soviet and communist. It didn't used to be that way. And so communism, Marxism, Bolshevism got their first win in Russia in 1917. They tried to move communism west by tank, plane, and traditional warfare, but they were unable to do so because of the ethos and the culture of the West was resistant to it. And they said, okay, we're not going to be able to win the West, these Western European countries in America. We're not going to be able to beat them by going to physical kinetic war. We're going to have to fight them with watering down their culture. And so they started the Frankfurt School. People like Herbert Marcuse, Alexander Gramsci took these things and they came up with a 100-year plan to infiltrate the institutions of the West. And it started at Columbia University in the 1930s. People left the Frankfurt School and went to Columbia University in New York. And that's where it began. That was the first beachhead where the communists came and did this. And what they ended up doing from there, they took over Ivy League institutions. Then they went to prestigious universities, and then normal state universities, down to college, everything else, and then high schools, middle schools, elementary schools, and now they're putting transgender smut in children's libraries. But that was one of the institutions, was education, okay? Then they went after seminaries and churches, and they infiltrated the Christian church. They took over media, and they've destroyed the American family, Okay, but let's go back to the church. They infiltrated the church. The church has always been on the front lines of the culture war. If you look back throughout history, whether it's the Crusades or whether it's the American War for Independence, you had Presbyterian pastors they called the Black Robe Regimen, and the Black Robe Regimen was preaching fire and thunder from the pulpit so that they could recruit troops to go and fight for the freedom of us and our posterity. Point being, the church has always been on the front lines, and so communists wanting to destroy the West know that church and family are the two biggest things that they need to destroy, but they would also throw in education, and they need media to be able to do that. Okay, so those are the 4 areas that you've seen them operate in the most, and specifically as it pertains to churches, they've hijacked the narrative and they've misapplied scriptures, and it comes to every communist political objective, whether it's abortion, whether it's immigration, whether it's homosexuality, whether it's critical race theory, whether it's any of these things, there is the Christian case for why we should take refugees. Why shutting your church down and getting the vaccine is loving your neighbor, right? And so Meg Basham actually wrote an incredible book called Shepherds for Sale, where she outlines this entire thing. But what's happened is that the church has been infiltrated. Pastors are sissies and cowards. They're not preaching the full counsel of God courageously from the pulpit. And as goes the pulpit, so goes the nation. And so what we need is a revival of men who are willing to do the hard work of learning the scriptures well enough to be a pastor, who have a wife and that they have children that are obedient, and they go and they take the pastorate and they apply God's word to God's people, and that will save our civilization.
Thank you so much.
Yep, absolutely.
Hey, how are you? Good to
Is
see
this
you.
going to be a USS Liberty question?
No.
Okay, I saw the hat. I wasn't sure. Okay, hit me.
No, my question is, I know you answered this prior, but my question is, what do you think of the Israel and their commitment to get like Iran, and why they are having so much control over U.S. politics and getting us into Iran and securing that area like they did with Syria and Libya?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the $1 million question right now. It's a question that you used to not even be able to talk about. Mm-hmm. But that the Overton window is moving on this issue, and there's a lot of questions. Why does AIPAC give so much money to American politicians? What is the result of that? Why are we getting into these Middle Eastern wars that have no direct benefit to the United States of America? Trump ran on domestic issues, close the border, remigrate and deport, fix the immigration system, make affordability a primary issue. Three M's of a stable society is marriage, multiplication, and mortgages. So that means getting married, having kids, and buying a house. Okay, your guys' generation doesn't feel like they can get married. They can't afford to get married. You guys don't feel like you can afford to have children. You don't feel like you can buy a house.
Yep.
And so this is not a good look for the future of our civilization, that our government is now over in the middle of another desert sandbox conflict that does not serve us in any way. So who does it benefit? It obviously benefits Israel. What does that mean? I don't know enough about it to speak plainly, but yeah, I certainly understand where the concerns and everything are coming from. And I would love to see the energy and emphasis that we've seen with our military executing the things that we did in the first Iran strike, what we did to the Venezuelan, dictator, and what we're doing right now. That same elite caliber, all American exceptionalism. I wish we could take that and apply it to our domestic issues, so that we could actually make good on all those domestic promises that Trump had.
Yeah. What do you think of Trump's administration right now? I was a first-time voter and voted for Trump, and now kind of seeing, I was promised heavy deportations. That's coming to a close. I was promised keeping the streets safe. He only did that in like Washington, and then he tried to go into Detroit. Didn't happen. Tariffs are falling. I just want your opinion. How do you think the Trump administration is going and all that?
So I was scrolling Facebook earlier, which is a bad habit of mine. And I saw something, was able, to the best of my ability to confirm it, that there has been, in his administration, there's been no new refugees placed. And so he has closed the border. The flow of immigrants coming in has been astronomically decreased. And so, yay.
Yeah.
Right? Definitely. And so I want to give credit where credit's due. I think he's got the amount of resistance that he is up against to be able to accomplish these domestic goals is beyond anything we've ever seen. You know, from the time he came down the escalator in 2015 to today, no one's ever experienced the amount of resistance that Donald Trump has.
Definitely.
And he's fought. He's been shot in the head. This man has fought, literally fight.
Yep.
He has fought for us. And I think he has 4 years and then another 4 years to get as much done as possible. And I think there's so much to say. I'm very pleased with a lot of the things that he's doing that we never, ever in a million years, if you would have got a John McCain or a Mitt Romney or a Bob Dole or somebody like that, we never would have seen the things that we're seeing right now. And so I think it's incumbent upon us about being grateful for the things that he has done, while also not letting the pressure off to make sure that he fulfills his promises.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Appreciate you, brother.
Yep.
Okay, so this may not be a topic for debate, but I just want to know your opinion.
Sure.
Do you believe that baptism is necessary for salvation?
There's a lot of debate upon this topic. I do believe that you are supposed to be baptized, but I believe that, the thief on the cross was not baptized, right? So you can make the case that, Jesus looked over at him and said, today you'll be in the kingdom of heaven, and he was not baptized. So I think that settles that point. But I believe that obedience, once you've been regenerated, once you've been saved, once you've made a profession, the first thing you should be doing is looking for some water. I would emphasize that. It's kind of my position, but I also do think that there is more going on in baptism than most evangelicals realize. I think that there's the term would be sacramental efficacy. Mm-hmm. I believe that the sacraments are more efficacious than most Protestants are willing to give them, but I'm also not Catholic or Orthodox.
So I agree.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right, that's all.
Thank you, brother. He's back.
I had thought of a question.
All right, hit me.
So you agree with Trump? You're a Trump supporter.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you agree with Trump being in the Epstein files?
Yeah, I don't think there was anything incriminating about him being in there.
So
just because your name's in them doesn't mean that you were like mowing down kids. You know what I mean?
Right. But if you're best friends with the kid mower, what does that make you?
I think he was the one that turned him in.
That's your theory.
Well, no, I mean, I think based off the things that you can see in it. But I don't put it this way. If he was in the Epstein files in any way that was any type of incriminating, you don't think that he would be. Imagine, okay,
it's been
what would be
redacted.
happening.
We got a redacted version of the Epstein files.
Yeah,
and there's pictures of him with underage girls.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you on the redaction part. I'm not super pleased about that either.
I'm pretty sure every time it's redacted, it's probably his name.
That'd be an exaggeration, but I understand how you feel. I don't like the redactions either. It's frustrating because these people are pedophiles.
So
that are having
you
sex
said
with children.
Abortion is satanic. Do you think the people in the Epstein files are satanic?
100%. I think Jeffrey Epstein is peak Satan. I think the sacrifice that he was making by having sex with these children and all, if you understand Pizzagate and Frazzle Drip and all the things, which is going to make me sound like a lunatic that I brought those things up. Like we all thought that was crazy. And then we were told when the Epstein files came out that, well, the girls were mostly like 16 and 17, so it wasn't that bad. And then the Epstein files hit, redactions included, but still you're able to garner like, oh my God, this is 1,000 times worse. This is Pizzagate. This is what we were told, where children are essentially being ritualistically sacrificed to these pagan satanic gods, and the sacraments of Satanism, and I would say that secularism and atheism is an actual religion, and the sacraments of the Christian church are word, water, bread, wine. Okay, so baptism and the Lord's Supper and the preaching of the word; those are the sacraments of the Christian church, the true church, and the sacraments of Satanism, which would be secularism and atheism. I joke and say baby murder and butt sex. But specifically, sodomy and the slaughter of unborn children. And so, yeah, I think what they're doing in the Epstein files is sacrificing and doing these ritualistic sex rituals to the same gods that abortion was created out of, and also homosexuality. So
do you think that abortion is wrong because you think it's morally wrong, or do you want to control women's health?
No, I think that chopping women, having a woman's womb should be the safest place for a child. Like with your mom, that would be the safest place that you should be. And so a woman whose primary purpose for being put on earth is
you think a woman's primary purpose is to have children?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, and to nurture them, and also to help her husband.
What if you can't have children? Does that make that woman not have a purpose?
No, there's plenty of other things she can do, but I do believe that. So in the beginning, okay, God said, be fruitful and multiply and subdue the earth and exercise dominion over the fish of the seas, the birds of the air, and every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth.
Right.
And so in the dominion mandate, you have be fruitful and multiply is the woman's piece, and then subdue the earth and exercise dominion over it is the man's piece. And so God gives Adam a mission, and then he brings a woman to be his helpmeet, and then together they're able to actually take dominion of the earth and bring Christ's rule and make it known on earth. And so, but I want to go back to your question that you originally asked me. I don't want to control women. I want to keep murderous women from being able to chop up the baby. Well, hold on.
Okay.
From being able to essentially go in and chop up a baby in their mother's womb and shop back it out. I don't want women to be able to do that.
So how do you feel about the lady in Atlanta, Georgia, who had a baby, and the baby was a high-risk pregnancy, and she basically died, and they kept her hooked up to a machine to have the baby because abortion is illegal past a certain amount of weeks in Atlanta? How do you feel about that?
I don't know the case well enough to know all the details, but I mean it's unfortunate, obviously.
So do you agree with that baby, even though the womb that's no longer alive should be kept able so the baby can live?
Yeah, 100%.
Even at the extent of the mother losing,
I don't think
the children that she already had lost a mother as well.
Yeah, I don't think you should. I don't think so. As a husband, if my wife was, and again,
a tree. If you have a tree and you plant it, you can get more trees because it gives you seeds.
Yeah.
If you get rid of the seed, you have I feel like the woman, you can make more children.
Sure. No, so
you
yeah,
would choose
I was
to keep the
actually
baby
going to
if your
go.
wife
I was
was in
actually
the...
going right there with it. So
right.
If and again, what is a high risk pregnancy? Well, to people who want to kill the children in their womb, a high risk pregnancy is like, this is uncomfortable. Okay.
No,
but
that's not what
no. I know
is.
what I'm saying is like it could be argued that like who's making the decision in the operating room with the abortionist that kills babies all day long? Like, are we going to listen to his judgment?
So, do you think women view abortion as like a form of birth control?
Yeah.
So you do realize that to have an abortion, it's really painful, and
I imagine
it feels like you're.
It's really hard on the baby.
Imagine the body.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So imagine the body. You don't think it's hard on the body?
I'm sure it is.
As well.
Yeah.
So you think every time somebody gets nutted in, they want to go have an abortion?
No, I don't think they do. I think women make the decision to abort their babies for a number of reasons. Sometimes it's birth control. Sometimes it's probably some form of satanic sacrificing their children to Molech. That's probably pretty rare. But more often than not, they feel like they can't afford their children. They feel like they're in a hard place, and they believe the lies of the world, and they choose to abort their child.
So you think that instead of bringing the child in poverty to give the child the opportunity to not exist, you think that that's wrong?
Should we kill all poor people?
I mean, I'm not rich. I'm with the poor, so...
So we should just go in and just shoot everybody that's poor because we don't want them to suffer? Or we could chop them up and chop back them too.
I mean, like, that's not my question, though.
Well, I mean, you asked, you said, would it be better to kill them so that they don't have to live poor? My family grew up dirt floor poor.
Right.
And so if someone would have killed my dad, I wouldn't be here.
Exactly.
Right. So, like,
and
they didn't have an abortion. I don't think
some people should be here. I think Hitler should have been aborted, but he was here. So.
Yeah, what's the question?
I think it's about controlling women's bodies.
I don't.
Why do you have so much to say and you don't have a vagina? You can't make a baby without the woman.
I was born without one. I'm sorry.
You were, so you shouldn't have any say-so.
So I have no opinions on anything because I don't have a vagina?
Yes.
So every person...
That's like people without kids shouldn't be able to... They feel like... Parents feel like a person without a child should not be able to tell them how to raise their child because they don't have kids.
A child's a lot different than a vagina.
I mean, the child comes from the vagina.
It does.
Okay.
100%. Yeah, no, I think that we need to be able to, the people who have been put in positions of authority and the people who've been put in positions of authority.
So wait, how do you feel about abortion when it comes to the whole rape thing?
I think it's tough, but I think.
So you even think if a woman was taken advantage of, she should still have the baby?
Yeah.
That was God's will.
Yeah.
For her to carry the... So what if that mom has the baby and she resents that baby because it reminds her of a bad place in her life, and she beats the baby and she does all types of bad things to the baby? Does the baby deserve that? Because
she should work really hard not to beat her child because of resentment.
Okay.
That was me.
Yeah.
I have a 25-year-old son who's doing great.
Okay. I mean... Okay.
What's up, man?
What's up? So I don't know much of your religion views, but I'm very Catholic.
Word.
And I would like to revisit the if baptism saves argument.
Yeah.
I mean, John 3:5, it says, unless a man be born of water and of the Spirit, he cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. Saying if you are not
Amen.
baptized,
Yeah,
you
no,
can't
I
enter.
like 100%. So again, I have a extremely high view of the sacraments, and I believe that I believe when it says that you're baptized for the remission of your sins, it means it. And most evangelicals don't believe that. And so I think in the same way that there's a scripture that says what you just read, that there's also Jesus looking over to the thief on the cross and saying that, you know, you're going to be in the kingdom of heaven today, and he wasn't baptized. And so what I'm saying is I don't know. I can't control that. And so the best thing I can do is to make sure that baptism is of the highest what's the word I'm looking for? Priority to someone who's made a profession.
Of course.
But I believe in the baptism of children, like babies,
Yeah.
infants. And so,
how would you, to somebody who says that they shouldn't baptize their kid, what would you say about that?
it's a huge debate in the evangelical church, but I mean, I think I understand the arguments on both sides of it, but after, deeply studying that issue, my wife and I basically came to the conclusion that our children are Christians, that they're in the covenant, and so the sign should be given to them. And I also believe in paedo communion, which means where the children come to the table. Yeah.
It talks about in the Bible that they were baptizing whole households, and it never once excludes a baby in that. So
yeah, 100%.
That's how I would say that. But I would say
here's another argument. Let me tell you this too, to go with this. In the old covenant, children were included, and it was a very, very big deal. So if for thousands of years children were included in the covenant, and then the covenant that's coming next is the new and better covenant, and in the new and better covenant, for some reason, children weren't included, shouldn't it say somewhere in the scriptures that, oh, by the way, I know we've been doing this for 2,000 years this
absolutely.
way? So, that was the argument that actually won me over.
I would say I don't love the thief on the cross argument, though, because I think no Catholic is going to say, like, if you don't have a chance to be baptized, you're not going to heaven because of that. But also, the thief on the cross was there before Jesus died, so his sins were not paid for yet.
Yeah, so was everyone in the Old Testament sins paid for?
No, but they were in a waiting place. Jesus had to go.
Is it purgatory?
No, not purgatory. Purgatory is a very misunderstood concept.
Yeah, I don't understand it, but yeah.
Jesus died for your sins to open the gates of heaven. Nobody was in heaven before Jesus died. Jesus died, this is in the Apostles' Creed.
Sure.
So that's kind of why Jesus had to die.
He had to die for sin.
Yes.
So Old Testament saints sin. And so the difference is that in the Old Testament, in the Old Covenant, the modern evangelical belief within dispensationalism specifically is that the blood of bulls and goats cleanse them from their sins. But clearly in the New Testament said the blood of bulls and goats does not cleanse them from their sins. Those were the Old Testament sacraments and sacrifices. They were participated in by faith. And so it wasn't the blood of bulls and goats that saved them. They were looking forward to the Savior to come, and we were looking back at the Savior who came.
Yes,
and we participate in our rituals by faith, our sacraments by faith, in the same way the Old Testament saints participated in theirs looking forward. So I believe that there were saints in heaven before Jesus died.
I would just...
it's cool. That's why I'm not
I would
Catholic.
just say I would disagree. I don't think that's the historical Christian belief. But God bless.
Appreciate you, brother.
Good to talk to you.
Yeah, awesome, man. Thank you. If you're running a ministry or you own a business, my guess is that you've been thinking about starting a podcast for a while now, but for various reasons it hasn't happened yet. Send me an email. I need to personally connect you with Yonder Child Media. They built this studio in 2 days and tackle all of the production. I just come in, start talking, and leave. It's that easy. They do everything else. Whether you want to record at your business or a home office like they just built for me, you come in, start talking, and Yonder Child will do everything else. Send me an email. That's going to be Bryan.Dawson, DAWSON, at 1819news.com, and I'd be happy to personally connect you. So when I was 23 years old, as I said, I was facing 384 years in prison for attempted murder, aggravated robbery, and extortion. I was born in Colorado Springs, Colorado in 1984 to two parents who could not have been more different, as I said. My dad was a Louisiana swamp redneck. My mom was the daughter of a state senator, and kind of country club upbringing. They got divorced when I was 2. Courts put me with my mom, which is not where I should have been because of the trauma that she was dealing with. And so like I said, I used to watch her get beat and, get drunk and all of these things. If you guys have seen the J.D. Vance movie, it's called Hillbilly Elegy, or read the book. That book is and that movie is very similar to what my time from 2 to 10 was with my mom. And I always make the joke that me and J.D. Vance are basically the same person, except he got into the Marines and went to Yale, and I got into drugs and went to jail. But other than that, same person, nice beard, handsome guy. But, no. So from 2 to 10, I was with my mom and experienced a lot of things that were not helpful in, formation for me. And when I was 10, I moved in with my dad where there was a lot more structure, and I thrived with that structure, but I still had a lot of issues. And so I dealt with those issues by drinking and doing drugs. And, I drank and did drugs a lot. And then I found out in order to do drugs, you have to sell drugs because they're expensive. I found out I was really good at selling drugs. Same thing that makes me good at what I do for a living now, which is networking, sales, and persuasion, made me good at what I was doing then. And so, there's so much to tell and so many rabbit holes I can go on that are interesting, and I don't really know exactly the best place to go. But, got into that, as I said before, in a very short period of time, went from selling little bits of marijuana to where I was selling cocaine and methamphetamines for really bad people that were doing really bad things. And with that, ended up catching, I got arrested for possession with intent to distribute. I got arrested for felony eluding. I got in a high-speed chase with the cops and had a pistol and methamphetamines on me when we crashed. I had stolen cars. But finally, the one that they were trying to put me under the prison for was a guy had told the cops about some illegal activity I was involved with, which is against the rules in that lifestyle. And so I went and found him, knocked on his door. He answered the door. We went in, got into an altercation. I beat him nearly to death and stole everything of value in his house and threatened his brother. Cops frown upon that, as they should. I get thrown in county jail for that. And I was in county jail for 2 weeks, but I ended up bonding out and making the decision that I'm going to go on the run, okay? Because you guys all watch the movies where they're like, we're going to Mexico, right? I never know why they don't go to Canada. It seems nicer, but whatever. So I was going to go down to California and go to Mexico. It never ends up happening, but on multiple occasions, I was surrounded by the cops and was able to kind of elude and get away. And so finally on June 19th, 2007 was my last day out, and I'm in this 3rd-story apartment building, which is like my safe house where we were going to stage our move to Mexico that never happened. And it was June 19th, 2007. I woke up that afternoon and was cooking bratwurst, watching the Chappelle Show, smoking weed. And I looked out the window and I saw the front end of a cop car, so I knew that they were there. And then I hear boom, 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 Colorado Springs police open up. And I hear the door get kicked in, and I look up to see if my door got kicked in, and it didn't. They were kicking in every door like it was like Fallujah or Afghanistan looking for me, okay? And so I had a little bit of time, and I had a nylon rappelling rope tied to the bottom of a 70s retro recliner. Okay, that was my escape route that was wider than the window, so I kicked the screen out of the window and jump, and I'm hanging 3 stories up now from this rappelling rope from a recliner that's jammed in the window, and now the cops are in there. What I didn't know is there was a surveillance van in the back parking lot, and 50 or 60 cops came swarming from the sides of the apartment to where I was with their guns drawn, get on the ground with some choice words, and gravity would dictate that the ground is where I was going from that point, right? That was really the only direction I could go. And down I went, and they cuffed me and put me in the back of a cop car and sent me to county jail. And I was in there, and I thought I was going to do the rest of my life in prison, so I did click up with some really bad people, and I thought I had to be this bad dude, right, and create this reputation so that when I got to prison, people didn't mess with me, right? And so I caught 2 more assault cases when I was in county jail, and so they finally put me in administrative segregation, which is solitary confinement. I was in a cell by myself for 23 hours a day. I got an hour out to make a phone call, take a shower, back to my cell. And I was in there for a total of 4 months, but about 3 months into it, God opened my eyes to the fact it was my fault that I was in there. Because up to that point, I blamed my mom, I blamed my dad, I blamed the cops, I blamed the judge, I blamed the district attorney, I blamed everybody but myself. Okay, and you guys, at the age that you're at, that's something that you guys need to be thinking about. Is the problems that you're seeing in your life, are you the one who's creating it, or are you going to try and blame everybody else, right? And this was that moment where God opened my eyes to the fact I needed to take responsibility for my thoughts, feelings, behaviors, etc. that created these bad circumstances. So if my bad choices create these bad circumstances, that meant that I could create good choices that would create good circumstances. And it was this epiphany, and I wasn't saved yet. And so I end up facing 384 years. The district attorney comes back and offers me 32 years with a crime of violence if I would take a plea bargain. So rather than going to trial, if I would just plead guilty, they would only give me 32 years with the crime of violence, which means I would do 24 years. And by the grace of God, I was able to get into a mediation hearing where I was only sentenced to 16 years. They dropped the crime of violence, and I was shipped off to the Colorado Department of Corrections, where I met a gentleman who preached the gospel to me over a number of years and planted gospel seeds in my life. It eventually took. And I got saved, and he gave me a Bible and said, start reading the story of Joseph. So I did. I started just feasting on God's word every single day, every single day, every single day. This is back in December of 2010, and I haven't stopped, okay? And God was changing me through his word every single day. And then about 9 months into that process of reading God's word every day, I prayed that God would bring me a pen pal. And I struck out a whole bunch because healthy girls don't like to write guys in prison. I don't know if that was a surprise to me. I don't know if that was a surprise to you guys. But rough crowd. All right. I struck out and I'm like, okay, God, if you want me to have a pen pal, you're going to have to do it. Well, lo and behold, I called my mom and she said, hey, do you know a girl named Christina Dawson? I said, well, yes, ma'am. That was the girl, or Christina Ewan. I said, that was a girl I was head over heels in love with all throughout middle school and high school. You know, that was the girl that got away. And she found me in prison and we began to correspond. And in my mind, she was going to be married to a doctor in a, 3,500 square foot house with a white picket fence. She was not. She was actually living in Alabama and had been divorced and had a son. And she had just gotten saved. And so we fell in love through written correspondence. I ended up getting out at 5 years and 2 months to go to this intense behavior modification program in Denver, Colorado called Pier 1. I was there at that program for 2.5 years. About a year into it, Christina and I got married. She flew up here to Denver from Alabama. We got married. I proposed to her on the front porch of a drug rehab. Very romantic. Yeah, should have done better, but there it is. All's well that ends well, I always say. Yeah, and so I moved down here 11 years ago. We moved to Shorter, Alabama in Macon County, and we planted our family. We started with her son, and then we've added 6 more. So I've got 7 children. I now live in Wetumpka, Alabama, and since I moved to Alabama 11 years ago, I got into the media business, and God just continued to open doors for me and blessed the work of my hands, and the outworking of that has been the creation of 1819 News, and the Lord has blessed our ability to be able to tell the truth no matter if they shoot bullets at you, and to bring a Christian ethos back to our state and hopefully our nation. There you go.
So, with what you personally have experienced in prison and jail, do you know about the problem in Alabama with the prisons? So, if you could quickly kind of explain, like, what's going on and what both sides are seeing and what you believe the solution is.
Yeah, I mean, a very unpopular opinion I have for someone who's been to prison, I think we need to be killing more people faster. So if you commit a capital crime, I think that the fear of God has to be before the eyes of a citizenry. So when you have someone who rapes a child, someone who murders, someone who does something like that, I think we need to be killing them. And if you killed them, crime would go down, and so you wouldn't be filling up the prison. So that's one problem. The second problem is, and again, I'm not like super dialed way in on the Alabama prison system, but there is the governor doesn't have the ability to pardon people, and so there's that. But I think more than anything, the prisons in Colorado, I had the ability to get an education when I was in there, and I took vocational training and all these other things, and I just don't see that in the Alabama prison system. The level of violence in the Alabama prison system is astronomically higher. The demographics in the Alabama prison system are radically different than they are in Colorado. And so all of that plays a factor. But at the end of the day, conservatives, Republicans are going to need to see people in prison the way that Christ sees them, which is justice first. Justice must be done to have a civilization and a society. You have to exercise the power of the sword, but there's also a place for mercy. But you can't give mercy and no justice, and you can't have justice with no mercy. And so I think that spirit, and I think Tuberville's probably going to do some things when he becomes governor that will address some of these issues. We're building 2 giant prisons right now. I don't know if that's going to help. I mean, I could go on and on, but I think one of the other problems we have is that Alabama is like a small town. Like the whole state is like a small town. Like I can be up in Athens, Alabama and talk to someone that's like, oh yeah, that's my cousin that lives near you in Wetumpka. And it's like wherever you are, everybody knows everybody. And so the prison guards that are in the prisons in Alabama, they know these prisoners, and they're bringing them in drugs, and they're bringing them in cell phones. Like when I was in prison, there wasn't a single cell phone. There was very little drugs, right? And it's rampant in there. They're killing and raping and maiming. I mean, it's horrible. They did a documentary recently that it was propaganda for sure, but doesn't mean it's always bad. They obviously had a point they were trying to make, but it exposed how bad things really were in there. But the flip side of it is a whole bunch of killers in there too. Killers, robbers, murderers. I'm like.
Yeah.
What do you do?
They kind of really haven't taken many steps yet to address it. I know that it's been in the media a lot, and they're probably going to. So what would you say is like the first step to getting it fixed?
Yeah, I think the first step, like I said, is making our capital punishment system work more swiftly. So the idea of capital punishment is it needs to be consistent and it needs to be quick. And that's going to put the fear of God before the eyes of a citizenry, it's the same thing as closing the border. If you start talking about immigration, you got to close the border. Right, then you can figure out what to do with the people that are here. So if you can work on that, and then there's all kinds of other things that need to happen as far as in these kind of inner cities where families are completely broken down. Right, fathers need to be in the home. These type of things. So that will hopefully fix it. That's all down the road stuff that's going to take 40 or 50 years to fix. But immediate things right now. If I had a magic wand and I could just wave it and money wasn't an option, I would say you'd fire all the Department of Corrections officers or send them to other states to work and bring in people who don't know them. So there's not a conflict of interest with knowing these people. They've obviously been proven to be compromised. That's why the prisons are full of drugs and cell phones. You can't properly govern an institution where the inmates are running the asylum, as they say. And so, I mean, there's a myriad of things. But in overall of how we're a Republican supermajority state, how Republicans view the prison system, I think could make a huge difference. But I've been blessed. I have 6 felonies and I almost killed somebody, right? And people saw that I was wanting to do well, and they gave me every chance in the world. So I mean, a lot of people, conservatives, they do have the right view. I don't know. Did I answer your question? I feel like I'm rambling.
Yeah, no, I think so. When do you think that like some of those implementations, like whatever they see is going to fix it, like will start taking place?
I think you're going to see these 2 new prisons. And so, I mean, I'm going to start meandering off into state policy, which is just, but they were supposed to build 2 prisons for $1 billion. Now we've got 1 prison that they spend $1.3 billion on.
Right.
And it's this super max prison that Kay Ivey is going to name herself after, which is bizarre.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we'll see once these 2 prisons are built to see what that does. That was supposed to be the big move to keep the feds from coming in and intervening in the correction system. But it's going to take a whole lot more than that. It's a cultural issue, and it's yeah.
So would you say eventually the federal government is going to step in?
Yeah, if things don't change, which federal prisons aren't exactly stellar either.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sweet. Thank you.
Hey, it's nice to meet you. I'm Colt.
Nice to meet you, Colt.
So earlier you were talking about like the death penalty and like what you believed in, correct?
Yeah.
And then also earlier, which I want to say I do agree with the death penalty as well. Also earlier you were saying that you're anti-abortion, correct?
100%.
Sure. So like as a Christian myself, I've had trouble in understanding like why I believe in the death penalty, like and being pro-life, but I also don't believe in like abortion. So like, could you help me kind of understand like your look on that?
Yeah, so the question is, how can you be pro-life? And he's not, I'm paraphrasing, how can you be pro-life but also believe in the death penalty? That's something that gets thrown at us a lot. That's a quip that gets thrown at us. And I would say that killing people who kill people is pro-life because that person won't be able to kill anybody else. So there's that. Mm-hmm. But an innocent life in the womb is far different. But I think that the scriptures are clear about both. And there is I don't think there's any cognitive dissonance or real. I think you can be consistent with that. The scriptures say that he who bears the sword must not, they should not bear the sword in vain. And they're talking about the state bearing the sword, which is the ability to punish and execute up to. And it also says that life begins at conception. And so you have to look at those 2 things. But I mean, it's just, again, when you really get into the way that God creates civilization, the point of the civil magistrate with the sword is to be able to put the fear of God before the eyes of a citizenry. If we live in a Christian nation, that doesn't mean that you're forced to be a Christian. What it means, though, is that our laws are going to be Christian and that you're going to live in a way that God would overall say, yeah, as a society, if God says it's good as a society, we're going to say, yeah, we think that's good. And if it's bad as a society, we're going to say that's bad. And so we're living in harmony with that. And when someone comes out of harmony with that to the point where execution, which is, there's instances in the Bible that give you the reason why you can, not always have to, but can use the sword to execute. You have to do that to put the fear of God before the eyes of the citizenry, because not everybody in a society is going to be a Christian. Their heart has not been changed. So what keeps them behaving in a way that allows you to have a society?
Okay.
Fear.
So where do you? Yeah, it does make sense.
Yeah.
So where, like you specifically, where would you kind of like draw the line? Would it just be murder? Would it be rape? Would it be like kidnapping? Like where would you draw the line at? All right, that's the death penalty. Like that's
yeah. I
set.
mean, I've not done like just insane amounts of thought, but I think acts of any heinous crime, premeditated murder, any type of rape that's provable, like everything's rape now, like our society, like everything's rape. Like if you look at a girl wrong, she's like, oh my God, I was raped. And it's like, no, you weren't. And so, but rape is still real. And when rape is real, we should kill that person, right? Because we love women, right? In that sense. And also we love the guys that get raped too, which is, it's pretty bad. But yeah, so anything like that, 100% capital punishment. And so it's the severity and heinousness of a crime, the swiftness of it and the severity of it is what puts the fear of God. I'll give you guys an example. This is a crazy story that happened in, I think it was Talladega or TPUSA County. There was an illegal immigrant who was here, and he ends up dating this woman who has a 4-year-old son and a 12-year-old daughter. And, he ends up killing the mom and the 4-year-old son and chopping them into pieces and putting them in a suitcase and pouring concrete over the suitcase and turned them into a back patio, tied the 12-year-old daughter up to the bed, serially raped her, like just over and over and over again. And when he was at work, because he was here seeking a better life to be able to provide for his family, right? Because he was at work. While he was at work, she chewed through the restraints, chewed through the rope, and was able to escape, and a neighbor saw her walking down the road. Kill that dude immediately. But nothing's been done, and it's been 3 years, and we were the only people to report on it, because that's the narrative. You don't want that narrative that there's illegals here chopping people into pieces and putting them in a suitcase and turning them into a back patio and raping 12-year-olds almost to death. That's a narrative that you're not allowed to have, but it's true, and it happened, and we reported on it, but then nothing's happened. The dude's been sitting in county jail for 3 years, already way too late. Should have been hung in the streets immediately after a speedy trial, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
I appreciate you, man.
Hi.
Hello.
I just have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
When you were talking about the prison situation, because of your experience and your wisdom, are you involved in trying to help change the prison system in any way?
Well, Cam Ward is our director of pardons and paroles, and he has pulled me in to help. But as it goes to the Department of Corrections, they just got a new guy, but the Governor Ivey is not a huge fan of mine. When Tuberville becomes the governor, I think he'll be more apt to listen to other people, and I think I'll be able to, have conversations that they'll hear.
Good. I look forward to that day.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Okay.
So I do have a question for you. So I've seen videos about different journalists asking different government officials and members of Congress if they're America first or Israel first, and they never answer that question. So do you see a concern at all with that?
Yeah, I mean, dude, like the influence of Israel on American politics, like I told the guy earlier, 6 months ago, a year ago, you couldn't even bring it up without losing your job, right? And like being kicked out of the movement. It's crazy. Like that in itself is a problem, right? And so, yeah, I mean, these people, they know when someone says, are you Israel first or America first? And they're just like, ha, 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 ha. Because they understand they might feel the way that you do or the way that someone else does. They may agree with you or disagree with you, but they're not going to speak on it because the consequences are too dire. So the question to ask is, why are the consequences so severe for asking that question? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah. I mean,
you can keep on too. You're good.
Not really. I mean, that's kind of just the base of.
Yeah. No. I mean, people are scared to death of Israeli influence. It's a very real thing. Whether that's good or bad is up for debate, but they do carry a lot of influence, and people are scared to talk about it. And me saying what I'm saying right now, I'm probably going to get some form of financial retribution from it, but whatever.
Doesn't that show the American people, though, like exactly where the priorities align?
100%, yeah.
Do you think there should be any sort of, I guess something that could happen to them, like they could lose their position or something along the lines of that?
Well, I mean, that's the beauty of our system, is if you feel like Dan Crenshaw, the pirate, right? Dan Crenshaw was a complete and total neoconservative who sold out to all kinds of foreign interests and huge military-industrial complex, Raytheon, Boeing and Lockheed Martin and all these missile makers, okay, and arms makers. He sold out to them completely, and I think he's in Texas, and the people of Texas said, you're gone. And so that's not an Israel thing or whatever. It's if you don't feel like your interests are being represented by your congressman, whether for any reason, Israel or otherwise, you need to make your voices heard and get those people out of Congress.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate your question.
Okay, hi.
Hi.
How do you feel about Trump's name being mentioned more times in the Epstein files than Jesus' name is in the whole Bible?
That's a very fair question, a great question. And the point that I made is that, yes, we have a redacted version, but there is plenty of incrimination going on with the Epstein files currently, that if he was implicated in any way, it would be over.
But he is implicated. He's the president. He's still the president.
He's in them, but he's not implicated in any crimes. If you can give me an example, I'd use it.
Just look on
The
any
frequency
news
of his name
website.
being in it.
Yes.
Yeah,
his
no, I mean,
name-
I get it. Like, I would not feel real great about myself if Bryan Dawson was in the Epstein files like 200 times or something. I'd be like, ugh, but like, that doesn't mean that the person's name, just because their name is in it, that they were guilty of something. There are people in the Epstein files who obviously did something, and that is what we need to be investigating. And my point is, if Trump was implicated, then I think, like, all hell would have broken loose.
He's implicated by just association.
Sure.
Guilt
by association doesn't.
So if
send
you
to
hang out with
prison.
a pedo, then that most likely means you're a pedo yourself.
Or you approve of it. Yeah, I get that. And so, like, look, I love Donald Trump, but he's never been, like, his view of sexual morality is not mine. I don't think he's a pedophile. I don't think he's a pervert. But I don't think just because he hung out with Jeffrey Epstein, who hung out with literally everybody that was rich and wealthy, I don't think that implicates him. I would have to see something that said Donald Trump was at Pato Island with this 6-year-old or whatever, and this happened, but we don't have that.
He also killed his 13-year-old girlfriend.
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, just look it up.
Okay.
Apparently, he was seeing a 13-year-old, and they killed her and dumped her on his island, on his golf course.
I'm pretty tuned in to all the conspiracies, a bit of a conspiracy theorist, and I've never heard that one, so I can't speak to it.
Also, you say you're a Christian.
Yes, ma'am.
And Trump is for Christians.
Mm-hmm.
But he has made derogatory comments towards women, like grab them by the pussy.
Yeah. I do not approve of that message.
You still voted for the guy.
Yeah.
And you still...
Yeah, no, he's been the most pro-life, pro-Christian president. That doesn't mean that he's a preacher or that I hold him in some high regard as the moral person.
But you should, because he's our president.
What I want from my president is to create a civilization that I can live in and my children will flourish in. And Donald Trump has done a better job of that than anybody since I've been alive, and going back maybe to George Washington. So, again, has he been perfect? No. Do I recommend grabbing women by their lady parts? No. Does he do some things and say some things that aren't great? Sure. But has he done more for America than anybody who's been in that office in my lifetime? Yes.
No.
I know. Thank you.
Prices are
Person
still
clapping.
high. Groceries are still high. We're in a new war. Trump said no more wars. Why are we in a war with Iran?
Me and you are on the same page on this one. I don't know. I don't know what the motive.
He doesn't keep up with his promises.
He's kept more promises than any other president probably in history. So he has, but it's yet to be seen whether he will fulfill all of them. He still has 3 years.
He has fulfilled none of his promises.
No, he closed the border. I mean, that's one. And things.
We still have illegals coming in.
You don't like illegals coming in?
Make the process easier.
Okay.
I'm
got it.
for
No,
illegals.
I just wanted to see where you were on that. Didn't realize I didn't think you were going to be the one that was arguing for keeping immigrants out.
I'm not.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's being the president is hard. I think he's done a phenomenal job. Has he been perfect? No, but do I support him? Yes.
You really need to.
I'll go read my Bible some more later today. I know. I do need it.
Hello.
I love the shades, bro.
Thank you.
WBS.
I was hitting before this, so
yeah.
But I'm from Minnesota, and I was just curious to see, like,
what you've thought about what has been happening over there the past few years with ICE and all the immigration. It's just kind of scary to see from my point of view.
Yeah.
So if you want to just...
I think it's not some random thing where Somalians just happen to all gather in Minneapolis and be like, you know what, I'm going to start a quality Leering Center. That's what I'm going to do today. I don't think that's how that happened. I think Barack Obama strategically put the most low trust people in Haiti and Somalia are, it's just as fact. This isn't, me trying to be racist, just objectively low trust people. Their civilizations are low trust. And Minneapolis, their ethnic heritage is the most high trust in the world. And so you take the most low trust people and you put them in the most high trust area in massive numbers, and then you give them the ability to vote, which is insane. You get an Ilhan Omar and a Rashida Tlaib, and you get a Tim Walz and a Keith Ellison, and then Keith Ellison and Tim Walz teach these people how to defraud the system. There's no way those Somalians figured out how to defraud the system of $4 billion without help. And so I believe, this is my opinion, that Tim Walz and Keith Ellison taught the Somalian community how to defraud, and the entire thing was one giant power grab operation to be able to get money so that they could put more people in positions of power, so that they could maintain their power, so that they could get more money. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I think of it. What has been disappointing to me is I feel like, wherever the girl was that just came up to the mic, my biggest disappointment that's happened in the Trump administration, again, he's done a very, very good job on this, but I wish he would have absolutely just crushed them and not listened to all the people that are like, well, this is so sad, and they're people too, and all that kind of stuff. It's like, no, they have to go. Everyone has to go back, right? Like, and he should have used that opportunity to crush the resistance. And had he done that, I think the Republicans would have won the midterm. And I think because he didn't, mixed with the fact that we're going to war with Iran, we're probably going to, Republicans are going to lose the midterms because of those two things.
And then another thing, I'm a Catholic. I was just curious to see what drew you to your denomination in prison, or your time there, and just...
Yeah, my denomination in prison was I got saved and baptized. Okay. Wherever the other guy was on the baptism. I got baptized in a horse trough in a prison. That actually happened. And so I was saved, I was baptized, and I didn't know anything about anything. And the water that we swim in America is Arminian dispensationalism. Okay, don't know if you know what that means, but that is what everyone is when they first get saved, essentially, unless they were evangelized by Catholics or Presbyterians or something. You come into it and you have kind of the standard American view of Christianity, and then you start reading your Bible, which is the leading cause of Calvinism, I would say. And you start to read your Bible and you realize that the way that the American church does things is not exactly how they should be done. And you begin to form your positions. And so the more I did that, the more I changed. I went down the Catholic rabbit hole. I've looked into Orthodoxy, and I'm still quite content being, where I am in kind of the Reformed Baptist, Presbyterian, CREC world.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
How's it going?
Howdy. What's your name?
Thomas.
Thomas?
Yeah,
Nice to meet you, Thomas.
Man, honestly, I'm here to learn. As a Christian, I don't think I do a good enough job of just paying attention to what's going on around the world. I think it's important to know those things. But you were touching on Trump and what he's done well and what he's done wrong. But, could you go further into what things you think he's done well so far and what things you think he should do in the next 3 years?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and again, this is not like an objectively identifiable, he did this. And again, I don't spend all my time looking at Trump's record. It's kind of like a gut level thing where I'm just watching the resistance that he's up against. And the enemies of civilization are doing everything they can to stop him from doing anything meaningful. There was an interview that Tucker Carlson did with J.D. Vance before the election where J.D. Vance's dog was wandering around. And they basically said, look, these people who are over these financial institutions would wreck our economy just to get at Trump. And that type of subversion and ability to, it's like a financial kamikaze, like how Muslims strap bombs to themselves and go kill themselves. There's people who are in institutions that would rather watch their institution, their city, their state fail just to point the finger at Trump. The amount of resistance that this man is up against is beyond anything that we could ever comprehend. Mm-hmm. And so I always weight my my judgment on Trump based on that. But the number one thing that I think that he's done, I'm a tariff guy. I think tariffs are great. People can argue, are they going to work? Are they not? We'll see. But he's made you know, from an America First perspective, he's made decisions that are about benefiting the American people. That's his ideology. Now he has to make decisions like he did with Iran. I don't know what influenced that. They've not clearly communicated why we're over there. So I don't know, right? There was no, like in the Gulf War, it was like, oh, we're going for the weapons of mass destruction that didn't exist. We don't have a communicated point of what we're going over there to do. We're freeing the Iranian people because the Ayatollah was mean. There's all kinds of mean dictators all over the place. That doesn't mean we need to go free all of them. So why we're over there, I don't know. But with the exception of that, I think he's done a phenomenal job closing the border, deporting people. And one of the things I want to give him tremendous credit for, and you guys get this because you're Gen Z, that's been based, is the social media feeds, dude. Like, have you guys seen like the Department of Homeland Security and stuff and like the edits that they're doing? You're like, oh my gosh. And Pete Hegseth, the Department of War, they changed it from the Department of Defense to the Department of War. And then he's like doing the Lord's Prayer in these recruiting commercials and stuff that are going out. And so what that is, so I talked about how the Long March through the institution stole our culture. They're pushing back against that, right? Like they're saying stuff on White House letterhead that you would have got fired for 3 years ago. And so they're pushing the Overton window way to the right and allowing people that believe what I believe and some of these other people who've come up to the mic where you can come out and say what you believe and have cover from the president. And so that's something that's not a policy or an intangible. That's just something that's being done. But I remember when they started rounding up illegals and putting them on a C-130 in cuffs, and this was on the White House social media, and there it's a video, and I'm like, this is crazy, right? So, yeah, I think that's great. Well, I've never done one of these before, and the one thing I'm going to go back and do before the next one is actually go get into the objectively identifiable things that he's done and not done so that I'm more educated. I've got no problem criticizing Trump where I think he's failed, but my overall Trump is huge support of what he's done. I'm very proud to have him as my president, and I think he's the standard bearer. He got shot in the head, got up, with blood running down his face, the American flag flying in the background, and pumped his fist and said, fight, 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 when everybody else would have rolled off the stage and peed their pants. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so I think the dude's fighting. I think he's fighting for us, but I think, the spiritual forces of darkness are on him. Alabama euphemism. They're on him like a pack of dogs on a three-legged cat.
I got another question.
Sure.
What do you think is a commonly held belief that many conservatives have that you think could be wrong? Or beliefs?
This is going to get me in trouble. I think there's a lot of things that I think that free markets are good, but they're not God. Does that make sense? So
maybe go into that more.
Yeah. So neoconservatism is a form of conservatism that rose in the late 80s and early 90s. And neoconservatism was brought in by Trotskyite atheists, and they took over the conservative movement with billions and billions of dollars and conservative think tanks and conservative media. And they essentially made the conservative talking points about free markets, deregulation, limited government, whatever. These are like the neoconservative talking points. Those are all good things, but we've turned them into God. And neoconservatives would say like, well, abortion and homosexuality, those aren't winning issues. We need to focus more on markets. Okay. And so like with the Epstein files, when Pam Bondi was like, was getting just excoriated about the Epstein files, she's like, but the stock market's at 50,000. It's like, nobody freaking cares. Like, kids are getting raped. Nobody cares about the stock market. So neoconservatism is like, as long as the markets and the GDP are where they're supposed to be, like everything else is fine. Like, it doesn't matter that all the jobs in the Midwest and in the Rust Belt and in the South, all of our manufacturing got shipped to third world freaking hellholes. Okay. And then we were promised tech jobs and engineering jobs. And so when those tech jobs and engineering jobs happened, they went and brought people from third world hellholes over here to fill them. And so now you have these people, and I guarantee you this has affected your family, that lost their jobs. They were manufacturing jobs. They were textile mills. They were coal mines. They were all these things. All these things got shipped to third world countries. They weren't sexy jobs, but they were jobs that gave people dignity. They were able to go to the textile mill and work and come home and eat dinner with their family and go to church, right? And those jobs and those opportunities have been shipped overseas. But you know what happened? Wall Street did good and the GDP went up, and that's all that matters. So I don't take market, like what's going on with the market is not more important to me than the overall health of a nation. And that was I interviewed Tucker Carlson, which is like, a great day in my life. And that was what the whole thing was. He did an interview with Ben Shapiro 7 years ago for a book that Tucker Carlson wrote called Ship of Fools that was all about this. The way that we essentially use the markets and Wall Street and GDP to cover up all the failures of the government, of how the American government, the American system has screwed the average American. And we're like, but the stock market, though, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey.
How's it going?
Sam.
Sam?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Sam.
I just want to start by saying I love your story for how you were saved. That is amazing, and I love your Christian testimony. My question was more about dealing with immigration. I checked out your X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and about a month and a half ago, you reposted this, and I just want to get your clarification on it.
Yeah.
And it said that they continue deporting every single foreigner. I agree with this second part.
Yeah.
But continue smashing any communist who tries to stop you. All gas, no brakes, save America. And I
didn't say that. I retweeted it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I just wanted
to. I thought, I was like, man, bro, that was pretty hardcore. I like myself. But
yeah, and I just wanted to ask you about that first part.
Okay.
I'm an immigrant myself. I came here around 2013. I become a naturalized citizen. I went through all the legal means, had everything. Where
are you from?
I'm from Honduras.
Honduras?
Yes, sir.
And so you've assimilated to Western society?
Yes, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about.
And you speak English?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And that's what I want to talk to you about, because it seemed like a very extreme point. And at first, when I saw that, I was like, "Wow, that's crazy."
No. So you
don't seem to be the type to just be like, "Oh, you're not from here. You got to go."
Yeah. No. So what we have is 30 million people who've come over here with no intent to assimilate whatsoever, and it's unfortunate for people like you who have come over here and done everything you're supposed to do and do it the right way and learn the language and assimilate to the culture. You are a fraction of what we're dealing with. And so since you're the exception to the rule, okay, it didn't used to be that way. All immigrants used to be like you, okay? And so, but what's happened is Biden opened the floodgates and like 30 million illegals came over, some legal and some illegal, but it was all kinds of people. And, the Somalians are here legally, but they don't speak English. They have not homogenized into American culture. They continue, practicing their religion, speaking their language, doing business with each other, right? That's a problem. And so that is the key to the whole thing. I think that the question about one of my positions that conservatives believe that I would disagree with goes into what you're saying. Do you know what dreamers are, DACA?
Not really.
So DACA is like, so I don't know your situation. So if you were brought over here by your parents came over here illegally, but you were 2.
I could tell you exactly what happened with me.
Please.
Long story short, my mom came here on a work visa and married my stepfather.
Okay.
I never met my real dad.
How old were you when you came over?
I was 8 years old.
Okay.
She married, became a citizen herself, and they went through all the paperwork.
Yeah.
To bring me here, 5 years, however much money, whatever, all that.
Yeah.
And I came here when I was 8. Spent 5 years away from my mom. Right. So that's my situation. I don't know much about the Dreamers situation.
Yeah, so the Dreamers DACA is what this is basically like if you came over here, like if your parents came over here illegally and you were 2 years old when you came over here, and the majority of the DACA people that fall under this thing that I've met, like you wouldn't even know that they were foreigners. They speak perfect English. They've been going to school here because they're scared to death of getting deported. They're like the most American people you'll ever meet, okay? And I think that there's a case to look at those people and not just blanket give everybody that's in that situation, but you look at those people and see, are they contributing to society or are they on welfare? Do they speak English? Okay. Are they, this is if I was, Lord Protector of of America, I would want people to be Christians if they're going to come over here. That seems like a stretch though for where we are currently. But are you contributing to society, or are you coming over here to parasitically suck all of our resources out and send them back to your nation? Yeah. And the people who are parasitically sucking our nation dry, which is to the tens of millions right now, they've all got to go back. And it's unfortunate for people like you who are going to get kind of caught in the crossfire. But I would say continue, do what you're doing, love God and serve Him, and see how it all pans out. But yeah, I don't have a problem with you.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Mr. Dawson.
Hi, how are you?
Good. My name is Ashley. I just want to know what your opinion on homeschooling is.
My favorite question yet. What is my opinion of homeschooling? Well, I have 7 children, and we've homeschooled a whole bunch, and so I think it's great. I think public school is I think you're safer dropping your kids off in the sub-Saharan desert with a machete than you are sending them to public schools in Alabama. I just believe that, okay? And so my children would never go anywhere near a public school. And I believe that if you can do it and you're able to do it, and I actually think that you need to make financial sacrifices to do it, because I think God requires you to give your children a Christian education, a Christian upbringing, a Christian enculturation. That whether it's at a classical Christian school or a Catholic school if you're Catholic, or you're homeschooling, I think that Christians are actually required to do that. I would make that case, and I would say that in the financial situation that our nation is in, it's going to seem hopeless. But when my wife told me that she wanted to come home and be a mom, we dropped off my oldest daughter at daycare, and she was in tears, okay, and she was weeping. And she said, you have to make it to where I can come home. And I'm like, I just got out of prison. I'm making like 30 grand. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. Right. So, but we said, okay, we're going to obey God in this area, and she's going to come home and be a stay-at-home mom, and we're going to homeschool our kids. And so we made a plan, and we began to do it, and God performed miracle after miracle after miracle financially for us to be able to do it. And so, yes, it seems hard and it seems impossible, but I would say seek to be faithful and do that, because the only way out of this, like we're doing all this political fighting that we're talking about right now, we're talking about policies and we're talking about all this other stuff. At the end of the day, this fight is going to be won through pedagogy, which is generational education. That's why the left has hijacked what? Education, because they understand they're shaping hearts, minds, and souls of future generations. So they've taken over the education system in our country. They're teaching their godless secular Satanism, and I think in order to keep your kids from that for the time being, until we can take these things back, we have a responsibility to give our children a Christian education.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Great question.
My name is Bartley. Nice to meet you.
Bartley, pleasure.
Yes. So my question is, what do you think about people in Congress and in politics having a dual citizenship, and what do you think about people taking monies from foreign lobbies?
No and no.
You don't agree with
that?
that?
No, I definitely, I don't think we should let anyone who serves in a foreign military serve in our military. I think if you're going to serve that military, I think you need to go be in that nation. I think if you live in America and you have dual citizenship and you're in Congress, whether it's Ilhan Omar or somebody else, okay, like you are, like you got to go. And I don't know if she has dual citizenship, but she's not an American. Like,
yeah,
what is this, right? And so, and I know where you're going with the dual citizenship, and I would say, I don't think you can be in Congress or any position of power or influence to where you have dual loyalties. And that's what America First is all about, okay, is America First. And if you have split loyalties, you can't be America First. Even if it's 50-50, I want 100.
Right.
Right, and I think we deserve that.
Okay, I got another question.
Sure, hit me. Ask me 10 more.
So, for the 2028 presidential election, it's looking like it's going to be Gavin Newsom versus J.D. Vance. You're supportive of Vance?
Of course.
Right.
Freaking
so,
great.
I mean, would you look into another Republican candidate, or are you just like full on to him?
I'm a big competition guy. So like if Marco Rubio wants to go head to head with him, if somebody else goes in there, I think it's better for us, right? If there is competition. But, J.D. Vance brings all of the courage of Donald Trump with the ability to communicate better than Barack Obama. He's just like the total package. He's got some weird ties to some weird people that don't give me the warm and fuzzies,
Peter
like
Thiel.
Palantir. Yeah. But I also know that in order to get into positions of power like you do, you've got to have some type of a sponsor situation.
Right.
And so based off of everything I've seen J.D. Vance do and the things I've seen him say, you don't say those things unless you believe him. Okay.
Right.
Like he's putting himself out there. So I know there's a lot of people that are suspicious of him and all that stuff. I get it. Everything he's done from the time he's been in there to today has made me just fall in love with him more every single day. And it's totally not gay way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like the things I've seen of him, like in 2016, he was like never Trump. He was calling him all type of things. Like, what do you think made him change his mind about that?
Bro, I was a Ted Cruz guy.
Okay.
What are you going to do? So I think he changed his mind. I think a lot of people were wondering if this New York Democrat that donated to Planned Parenthood was going to be the gold standard bearer for the conservative movement.
Right.
And turns out he was. And so I think a lot of people had to eat crow that were against him. And I think JD was the first to eat crow and say I was wrong. And again, I actually think that Trump has moved closer to JD Vance than JD Vance has moved towards Trump and his policies. I think Trump's opinion changed. Vance's opinion changed about Trump.
Right.
But Trump 2016 was, he would go down into Pittsburgh and meet with some steel workers, but 2024,
Right.
it was full on America first. Like he really leaned into that. And I believe it was more J.D. Vance's hillbilly elegy, what I just outlined was shipping our manufacturing and deindustrializing our nation. That was J.D. Vance's message, and I think Trump heard it and resonated with it and picked J.D. because he knew that was the message that we were going to need to be able to get people to show up en masse to vote.
So I know you just mentioned like Peter Thiel and Palantir. He supports all that mass surveillance state.
He's also gay.
Yeah. That's not great.
No. So I don't know much about the surveillance stuff, but the dude is like willing to rent women's wombs and make designer gabies, and I'm not really big on that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I think it's pretty odd. So the whole thing is just weird. Like I feel like a lot of these tech bro billionaires have gotten to the point where they feel like they're God.
Yeah.
Right, and I have a huge problem with that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for your question, man. Awesome. I like your shirt.
Thank you. Just a chill guy.
Just a chill guy.
I just want to say thank you for coming out.
Of course.
I'm not sure if it's been addressed yet, but I know me personally, I've seen a lot of things online that infuriated me. I would like to know your opinion on the reasoning behind on why this event got moved back, and the different threats and things that were online from a anonymous app.
Yeah. Montevallo is not known for its conservatism, okay? Like, we're just being honest. Not very many universities anywhere are. And so me coming in with the 6 felonies, and if you guys don't know the Bubba Copeland story, the pastor that was in Phoenix City was the pastor of First Baptist Church Phoenix City, and he was the mayor of Smith Station. And we did stories that exposed him that he was living a double life as an online trans porn star, and he was doing all kinds of other godforsaken, heinous, horrible things. And we reported on it, and he ended up, defending himself in the pulpit, and we continued to drip out stories. And the cops went to pull him over just to do a wellness check to see how he was. And he took off, and they got into a chase, and then the chase ended with him getting out of the car with a pistol, and he put the pistol to his head and killed himself. And the left-leaning media blamed me for killing him and blamed 1819 News and my editor and the reporter Craig Monger for killing him. And so my criminal record mixed with that sent the people who believed that I killed that guy, probably sent them into a rage that I would be allowed to come and speak here. And so they staged a walkout, and then there was death threats that came across Facebook, and there was some stuff on one of those hidden secret communicatory websites.
Yik-yak.
What is it?
Fizz and Yik Yak.
Viz and Yik Yak, and there was another one too. Anyway, death threats and all this other stuff. And I don't know whether the university caved to student pressure or if they really had security concerns. And my initial thought was that the university caved to student pressure, and I wasn't really thrilled with that. But since I've been here, they have treated me so unbelievably well, and the law enforcement here on campus has been so amazing, and they've set up like world-class security for this thing. Please give them a round of applause. I think they just wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to get killed, and so I'm actually appreciative of that. So, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know all the things, but yeah, it sucks. And so this is another point I want to make. I get called a fascist all the time, but I need to show up with a security detail and 40 cops to be able to say the things that I've said. But if a liberal goes anywhere and speaks, do they need 40 cops and a security detail to say what they say? No. So, it's insane, right? So anyway.
But yeah, I just wanted to say I admire you for coming out here through everything. Yep. You've already talked about perseverance, and I just want to say thank you for coming out here to a city like Montevallo, and speaking the truth.
Amen. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Hey, my name's Emma. It's good to meet you.
Hey, Emma. I'm Brian. Nice to meet you.
I wanted to go back on, you were just a couple people ago, I think you were talking about our school systems and public schools being bad for kids now, especially with the new people getting hired in our generation or the coming generations. And I have my own opinions on whether public schooling is okay for children or good. Yeah. And I've thought, like, in the future, like, what am I going to do? Am I going to homeschool or not? But I guess what I'm wondering is, do you believe that in America there would ever, possibly at any point, be laws put in place against like the hiring of all or even just primary educators from being, preventing them from being hired if they're transgender, non-binary, or like identifying as anything other than what they are?
Sure.
Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, and I think I love that you're even considering homeschooling. I think that's great. So I'll break this down and I'll go in reverse. And her question was, she has opinions on public school and whether she's going to homeschool, which I think I love. And then she said, do I think that it's possible that there would be laws against having transgender teachers or non-binary teachers or anyone who doesn't identify with the standard norms? And I would say, I hope so. Okay. That's my opinion, is I hope to God that we would do that. And my point is this: when I was growing up, I look back as a man who understands the world now, and I realized that 2 of my favorite teachers were actually gay. But there was no rainbow flags. They weren't indoctrinating me. They weren't telling me about their boyfriend or going to the gay bar. They were there to teach me, and they did a great job teaching me, and I had no idea they were gay.
Right.
Okay.
And that's why I say like transgender or identifying as anything else, because, or even if you're going as far as like trying to push it onto the students, because that's not okay. But I think that if you're a woman teacher or a male teacher, and you're attracted to the same sex, whether that's right or wrong in the eyes of God, if you're not pressuring it onto students, or you don't even talk about it at all and they don't even know, I don't see a problem with that either.
It's so rare, though, that homosexuals aren't pushing their beliefs on children, unfortunately. And so because that's such usually the case, but I am against homosexuality, and I am against transgenderism. I'm against the L, the G, the B, the T, the Q, all of the letters, and the pluses too. I don't like them either.
Right.
What I still differentiate, like in this situation, it's like a don't ask, don't tell policy. If I don't know you're gay and you show up and you teach and you don't diddle kids and indoctrinate them, like, go freaking nuts. I don't need to know, and you don't need to tell me. But trans, no.
Right.
Like if you show up and you're like, hi, I'm Mrs. Smith, and you're
Agreed.
like, oh my God, right? Kids don't need to be exposed to that. That's mental derangement. Okay.
Yeah. Same thing with like aside from that, like furries.
Yeah.
I definitely shouldn't be a teacher,
no
but I've
teachers.
seen. I mean, I've even seen.
Like, sorry kids, I gotta go to the litter box.
No, I've seen videos of like actual, I mean, maybe not as far as like wearing a suit, but like teachers they identify as an animal or something, and it's like 1 or 2 here and there, but online, and it's insane to me, because I don't know how they get hired in the first place. But, what I think is that like America and any state is gonna kind of be afraid of offending anybody by putting those laws in place, so I'm worried like that might never happen. Might never get there because of the fear behind it.
Yeah, no, I'm for it. I pray, and I actually think that there's such a shift to the right now. And this is the thing that I would give Trump and Vance the most credit for, and it's not just Trump and Vance. It's so many people out there on alternative media has become mainstream.
Right.
There used to be a progressive monopoly on the sharing of information and communication infrastructure, to where whether it was ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox News, CNN, that was the only places you could go for information. Well, now you can get it all over the place, and between Trump and Vance and this alternative media becoming mainstream, the Overton window has moved so hard to the right that I don't think that it's actually out of the question that we could ban trans people from being able to be around kids.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I'm hoping for, because I'm an elementary major, so I have my best interest in like the development of kids, and like when I go to teach one day, and I guess because I'm going to be a teacher, that kind of excludes the possibility of doing homeschooling, just because I won't be at home. But
you might be. I know many a teacher who came home and used their skills with their children, or at a classical Christian school,
like taking a leave.
Yeah.
But I guess for me, just because I'm going into elementary education, my best interest is in the kids, and I'm very worried just that we don't even have those laws yet. Even in Alabama, we have these teachers, and
they have passed legislation that's called divisive concepts, and this stuff is not supposed to be talked about. Whether it's critical race theory, whether it's LGBTQ, whether it's trans, whether any of that stuff, you're not supposed to talk about it. Now, a lot of the universities have gotten around it. They found loopholes, and so it's like, oh well, this isn't diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is the Office of Multiculturalism.
Right.
but it's the same thing. And so it's like trying to nail Jello to a wall. But I do believe that there is headway. But I promise you, when Coach Tommy Tuberville comes in here as Governor Tuberville, buddy, he's gonna bring a paddle to these type of issues, and it's gonna be. I think it. Yeah, I can't wait to watch what he does.
Do you think there's something we can do, or like that a movement that can be made to push it? To push that.
I think grassroots mixed with people at the top caring. It's never top down and it's never bottom up. It's always a mixture of both.
Right.
And so we need to be able to organize and communicate our positions. Like if you can organize and have a gay pride parade, I won't get into the details on those, but if you can do that, why can't we have a parade that says no trans people around kids?
Right.
Right.
But that's a problem.
I don't even know that it doesn't happen to fear. Like conservatives just don't organize around anything other than like guns.
Yeah.
Which is cool, but
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate the question. Thank you very much. It was nice to meet you.
Hey, how are you?
Doing very well.
Good. My name is Anna Grace. I went here for a year and a half. But then I got a call into ministry about a year and a half ago. So I'm currently going to the STS Institute in Homewood.
Okay.
Pursuing a path in youth ministry. But I really wanted to ask you about like the prison ministry that came in and discipled to you, and how that experience was for you.
Sure.
On that end, because that's something that I'm interested in doing later on in life.
Yeah. So there was a couple of different ministries. I didn't get the Chuck Colson ministry coming in there where I was. But it was Chaplain Davis, and he served on some prison chaplain ministry that paid him to come in there and do what he did. And he worked in conjunction with Sterling Correctional Facility in Colorado, and he was the primary one, but there was other chaplains, and then there was like Kairos Prison Ministries. They go into prisons once a month, and they do a big annual event every year that are amazing. And so really any form of prison ministry, I think, is a great thing, because again, it's the whole adage of the starfish on the beach, right? Have you heard this?
Yes.
And so you're walking down a beach, and there's starfish as far as the eye can see, and someone says, well, you can't save all of them, and so they just keep going, and then the next person says, okay, well, no, I'm going to grab one and throw it back and say I made a difference for that one. Grab the next one, made a difference for that one. I think that's how we have to view prison ministry. Is it's like, look, we can't save all these people. This is a horrible situation, and a lot of these people probably don't need to get out, but that doesn't mean God can't save them.
Right.
But yeah, I think prison ministry is an amazing thing, and I wouldn't be sitting right here in front of you guys today if people didn't do that for me.
Well, that's so awesome. Praise God.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's going good. My name is Jordan.
Jordan, pleasure to meet you. I like your mustache.
You too. Thank you. So my the word fascist kind of gets thrown around.
Sure.
Like it means nothing.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to hear what do you think fascism is?
So I kind of defined it earlier. You can do an economic thing where you're like, well, in communism, the government owns all the means of production, and in fascism, or socialism or whatever, they own half the means of production. Or it's like all these. To me, it's not about the economics. The economics are an outflow of the worldview, and so I believe that fascism is an immuno response to Bolshevism. Okay, and what I mean by that is when you have the people that are Bolsheviks coming in, putting trans grooming literature in your libraries and putting porn everywhere and encouraging divorce and are just absolutely destroying your Christian civilization. Democracy is not really great at pushing back against that. And so what usually ends up happening is centralized authority around a person with strong convictions that then tries to get this stuff out. And, you have different instances. You have Franco, you have Mussolini, you have Hitler. And all of those, there's different weights and measures on how they're viewed or whatever. But I think fascism is really where it comes from. Nobody pursues fascism. Fascism is usually a response to when communists, Marxists, Bolsheviks have come in and had their way with a culture, and done what's happening to our culture right now.
Right. And if you read the Doctrine of Fascism by Benito Mussolini, and Giovanni Gentile, Mussolini he describes fascism, I believe, as a perfect form of socialism.
Yeah, and it's not global socialism, it's national socialism, and which is it's different. and again, I'm not a big economist or whatever, and I don't know a whole lot about the economic structure. But again, what ends up happening is, how did Mussolini get in there? Because communists were, the Spanish Civil War and all the crazy things that were going on in Europe, where Bolsheviks were like yanking priests out of churches and stabbing them and cutting them open and pulling their guts out in entrails and digging up nuns and peeing. I mean, it was horrible what happened in the Bolshevik Revolution and the Spanish Civil War and all this stuff. And so someone like Mussolini gets into power, and they have all this centralized authority, and then their ability to make decisions on how the economy should work after this thing has already happened. And then they start talking about the economic piece to it. And again, I think, our founders said that, a republic, the way that our government is set up, the only way it works is for a moral people and a religious people, and that religion was Christianity. And so Christians are governed by the Holy Spirit, therefore they're going to behave in a way that can be high trust. And so you can have things like free markets and limited government, which are very good things, and all these other things that we emphasize in our way of government. But if you don't have a majority saved Christian people living in submission to the Holy Spirit and His Word, you can't have our society. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Great question.
Hi, I just wanted to ask, in your opinion, how can we as students, how can we help you convey your message to our fellow students and God's message, and what can we do to help what you're talking about now?
Dude, that's a fantastic question. So he said, how can students help me, 1819 News, the message? And I would say my message, and I hope I've not, gone too far off of anywhere Charlie would, but I mean, again, there's so many clips of him saying the things that he says that are out there. And it's listening to those and having other people listen to them. But also, I've got a podcast, 1819 News, the podcast. And to get our message out there, that's how it happens. Following on 1819 News, that kind of stuff. But more than anything, read the books that I recommend. Change, you need to, I'm not saying you need to change, but like, let the things that I'm talking about affect you. Let God's Word affect you. Do your own research and your studies and affect you, and go out and help other people have that same experience. But you have to be active at winning hearts, minds, and souls for King Jesus. And it's not a passive thing. So I love that you're excited. I love that you're fired up. But yeah, I mean, share our content, share, Charlie Kirk's content, all that kind of stuff. I think that's a great way to do it.
Thanks, sir. God bless.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I kind of just wanted to ask, what would the number one piece of advice would you give to, someone my age or, a college student right now?
I'm not even going to say your age or a college student. I'm going to say you. I think the biggest piece of advice I would say is to push back against what the culture is telling you should be as a woman, and what your roles and responsibilities are, and that if you want to go out there and be a boss babe and pursue some kind of career in a cubicle filing papers for some other dude, versus being a wife who's in the home, bringing in eternal souls into the world that you get to shepherd and nurse them and bring them to life and catechize them and teach them about Jesus. One is infinitely better than the other, but our culture has so glamorized the bad one and made women who choose the good one feel like they're less than, that I would just say push back against that. Make up your own mind. I'm not saying, Brian said you need to be a stay-at-home mom, but push back against the culture. Know that the voice at the loudest is not always right. And so push back against that and make decisions for yourself on what your future should be and what that looks like according to God's Word.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello again.
Hello again.
This is about a topic of abortion, kind of related to her question a little bit. Abortion is probably the greatest evil in American society right now. Since Roe v. Wade, 63 million babies have been aborted, and that's a genocide. How do we change the culture from that? Because a lot of women are very shut off when it comes to the topic of abortion and the whole my body, my choice, and how do we really encourage women to be mothers and nurturing and supportive?
It's basically what I just told her. And so her question was, abortion has been an absolute atrocity, and it's affected the way that obviously women think about motherhood and child rearing and all those things. So how can we as a culture encourage women to be more nurturing? Is that a good summary of your question? I think it's all cyclical, but it goes back to, what is the church preaching about biblical femininity? Most American churches, the pastors are so scared to death to talk about what women should be doing, women's sins, any of this type of stuff that they're not going to do it. And another thing that I think is horrible, is the way our legal system is set up right now. If it's illegal for an abortion doctor to carry out an abortion in Alabama, and thank God for that. But if a woman takes a pill and kills her baby, she's fine. It's not illegal for her to do that. Okay, and so I believe that I believe that the law is pedagogical, and what that means is that the law is a school teacher, not only God's law but also a nation's law. And if a nation says that a woman is not responsible for murdering her baby and she's not going to be held accountable for killing the child in her womb, then the state is saying that it's actually okay for you, woman, to kill your child. Right? And so how do we change the culture to help women? I think we need to change our laws. I think we need to change what's being preached in pulpits. I think we need to change the way we're doing education. I think the Christian family needs to become a thing again. And I think the media that we're digesting, I mean, media is a huge thing for your generation. You need to be digesting media that lifts high what's good, true, and beautiful, rather than this godless culture that we find ourselves swimming in.
Mm-hmm. And then one more question.
Yes.
Do you think there'll ever be a national ban on abortion?
I pray and I hope. And I know the first thing was like, well, we got to give the power back to the states, and the power belongs back to the states. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I do believe that the power should be back at the states, and I wish all states understood what this was. But again, it is a secular Satanism, same thing, sacrament. It is to them as important as the sacraments are to the Christian church. Abortion, the ability to kill your child, and have gay sex are the two things that are more important to the people who want to destroy our civilization than anything else. Ask yourself why that is. Why is it that they care so much about being able to kill their child and have gay sex? Like, why is that important? Does anybody seems like there's a lot of important stuff out there that isn't like baby murder and gay sex. I don't know. Call me nuts. It's a weird thing to build a political movement around. But, yeah, so I pray that there is a national ban. I think the point of the government is to exercise authority in a way that pleases God, and I think God would be pleased with any form of legislation or whatever it would be that would end innocent children being, chopped to pieces and shot back out of their mother's womb or killed with an abortion pill. I think that would glorify God, and I support it.
Thank you.
Yep. Opinion on Venezuela. I gave that earlier. I am a Monroe Doctrine guy. And so if you can show me how going in there and just like straight gangster knapsack that dude at night and like take his oil and make my gas prices go down, I'm a heck yeah to that. Yeah. Yep.
What's going on?
How's it going, man?
What are your thoughts on Sharia law in America, and like should it get banned? Or something like that?
I mean, I honestly would be okay if they just banned Islam altogether.
Yeah,
I mean, so there's that. But I mean, the politically correct thing is like, yeah, Sharia law, that's what we need to ban. Like, maybe, again, what is assimilation? What is assimilation? Assimilation is that you come over to our nation, which is Christian in its heritage, and you speak our language, you worship our God, and you follow our laws, and you contribute. So if you come over here from an Islamic country, you need to worship our God, you need to speak our language, okay? You need to follow our laws, and you need to contribute to society. So it's nothing against Islam necessarily. I feel that way about Hindu and all the other things. I mean, they're putting up these weird demon gods all over in Texas and these other places. Why do they put up statues? Why do they put up flags? Because these things mean something. These are religions of conquest, and they're coming here to conquer a sleepy Christian civilization. And there was a time in the history of the Christian church when that would never happen, because we were masculine and we fought and we knew what God's word said. And so we would never let this crap happen in a million years. Our founding fathers are rolling in their graves, and so are the church fathers. Yep.
Gotcha. How you doing?
Good to see you again.
You too. Okay, so just some kind of, I couldn't really hear, so I just kind of want to get a clarification, see if I want to ask this question or not. Well, you're saying if you immigrate to America or you're born in America, you feel like everyone should be Christian, is what you're saying? Okay, so then, well, I mean, obviously, I know you know this, but that would be unconstitutional because,
Sure.
So what do you have to kind of say on that?
Yeah, I think the interpretation of the Constitution is the problem, not the Constitution. So do you think when Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin and all these guys are writing the Constitution, they're like, freedom for Muslims to come over here and like, you know, have Pakistani rape gangs. Am I right?
No, probably
No.
not.
You think they were like, I think we should be able to have Baptists and Lutherans and Presbyterians and maybe Catholics.
Right.
That was what they were thinking, okay? This idea of all these godless, Christ-hating religions coming over here and conquering, no way. And so when the Constitution gets in the way of what the Constitution was originally meant, I'm an originalist, the original meaning of those who wrote the Constitution was never what we're seeing now. But when you take extremely skilled communist lawyers, Marxist lawyers, who twist and turn and win these court cases that set these precedents, we have to get rid of all of that crap and go back to the original meaning. Yeah, but yeah, freedom of religion is you can be Baptist and I can be Presbyterian and we all get to live here. It was never Islam and Hindu and all this other stuff.
All right.
Yep.
I appreciate that.
Yep. Well, that's a wrap, guys. Thank you so much for coming out. You know, this has been awesome. I've never done this before, and I'm very pleased that despite all the threats and cancellations and walkouts and all of the things that you guys still showed up and supported Turning Point USA and Charlie Kirk and me. So thank you for coming out and follow our content, follow TPUSA, and we'll see you next time.